Hey, BassGeek here, and the Urchin baits have become one of the hottest baits on the market today. They come in a ton of different sizes, but choosing the right size, well, that's only half the battle. The hook and weight that you put inside these baits can completely change the action and the fall rate. And one of the easiest urchin and weight systems that you're ever gonna see comes from the guy that showed you the very first Koike style video on the market. And that's one of my favorite urchins, the Yamamoto Uni, which now comes in 4 different styles. And I love to team those up with the Big Daddy Baits Hedgehog, the urchin style head that they just dropped. And today I'm going to show you how to combine these two and build the easiest urchin system for any situation you face on the water. During the summer, the bass tend to get around structure and cover and suspend up. Just like us, when the sun gets up high, they like to seek out shade. And that's really where these urchin baits shine, is around cover. I'm really not going to use these in open water scoping or just going down the bank, covering water. So urchin baits or unis really are target baits. So I want to identify structure or cover that these bass are hanging on or suspended around or deep inside. And that's the stuff that I want to target. I want to put this bait around that sort of cover and structure, those ambush points, and let it sit in front of their face for as long as I can to elicit those bites. That slow fall and quiver of all those appendages really help this bait stay around that cover a lot longer. And in the dog days of summer, that can trigger a bite from bass that'll normally let a moving bait just roll on by. But every piece of cover isn't the same, and neither is every bass during the summer. But the size of the uni, the hook that fits it, and the weight that controls the fall all need to match the forage and the depth that I'm fishing. The first decision is choosing the right uni bait. And this decision is about more than simply picking the right size, a bigger or smaller one. The original uni bait is made of TPE, but it's a little softer plastic, so it flexes a little more in the water. To me, it has a little more kind of flex and slow rebound reaction. And that can be good in some clear water. It can be good in some stained water. But the 3 new choices in the Uni lineup, the Uni HD, the Uni Moss, and the Uni Max, use a higher density TPE. So they have a quicker spring back, faster action, so to speak. They're also a little more durable than that softer, slower original Uni, which is great, especially for me fishing this clear water. Now the Uni HD and the original Uni are actually the same size. Now this is the Uni high density. You can tell immediately that it's a lot more springy. It's made of a little more durable TPE. I love the way these are packaged too. Love that little deal. But they're the same size as the original Uni. And for size comparison, this is the Uni Moss and this is the Uni Max. And the hooks that I like to pair up with these are the Big Daddy Baits Hedgehog urchin heads. Now they come in painted and unpainted. They also come in 2 hook sizes and 2 sizes. So you've got the 1/8 and the 3/16 if you need to get down a little bit deeper. For the bigger baits, you've got the 5/0 hook, and for the smaller baits, you've got the 3/0 hook. So let's talk about matching these up correctly. Now, I'm going to match up the original Uni and the Uni HD with the 3/0 hooks. So it's either going to be the 1/8 to fish it very slowly, very nice little fall on this bait. Or if I need to get it down a little bit deeper, let's say they're out at the ends of these brush piles or deeper brush piles, I'm going to tag it up with the 3/16. So comparison, this is the Uni Moss. And you can see this is the 5/0 hook, the 3/16, and you've still got a ton of bite out here. But of course the appendages are easily covering this bait and this hook. So that's going to team up extremely nicely. Again, the 1/8 is going to be for a shallower, slower fall, and the 3/16 is going to be to get it a little bit deeper. So again, another comparison, this is the Uni Moss and this is the Uni Max. So if you've got big bait and big bluegills and your bass are feeding on that sort of stuff, the Uni Max is what you're going to be picking up. And again, plenty of room on here, plenty of hook set area. And if you want to, you can go just a little bit higher in the ball so that you get a little space between the top and the bottom. But that 5/0 works great on this, the Uni Max. There's really two ways that I fish this setup. And the first one I use when the bass are a little more inactive, but they're still suspended or holding in and around that cover. I call that the quiver. I'm not twitching that bait. What I'm doing is I'm just shaking the slack in that bait, holding it at a horizontal plane so that it's just staying in place, just quivering those little appendages. That keeps the uni bait hovering beside brush piles, dog posts, structure of any kind longer in that strike zone. And when the bass aren't really active, keeping that bait quivering in front of their face for longer helps turn those followers into biters. All right, geeks, I want to tell you about boat effects. Listen, you guys hear me preach about the steps all the time, but I'm going to tell you today about their graph mounts, especially their console graph mounts. These things have more adjustments than you can imagine. You go to fish the BFLs, you got to have your graphs at a certain height. No problem. These adjust up and down. They tilt back and forth. They adjust side to side. You can get a ton of different configurations as far as your console and your bow up front. That's what makes these mounts so great. The time and effort they put into them, and they're made 100% in the USA. Now, like it couldn't get any better than all the adjustments, they all come with graph locks built into them. So your graphs will be safe. Oh, wait, it gets better because not only that, but I love my Garmin's. And I've got the EchoMap 12s, the 126 SVs. If you have those, you know that they come with a cradle. Well, guess what? They've got the best G-locked graph mount for that you can buy. We've got a video on that. You need to go check it out, by the way. But check this out, and we've got a great discount code right here. Guys, go check Boat Effects out. They make some of the best stuff on the market. So to keep this bait quivering and not moving forward toward the boat, I need a rod with a soft rod tip. Around that cover, I still need enough backbone to drive that hedgehog hook home and get that bass out away from cover. But when it comes to the two different baits, a lot of times I'm going to use a spinning rod for the regular unis. This is the Douglas X Matrix. It's a 7-foot medium fast action. It's got plenty of backbone for that smaller uni, but it's also got the quick tip so I can cast it and just keep that bait shaking. But when I move up into those heavier hedgehog weights with those heavier unis, the Max and the Moss, that's when I'm generally going to pick up a bait caster. Now, this is also a Douglas. This is a 7'1" Era, and it's a medium heavy fast, but it's got a great tip to it. And all I have to do is shake that slack even in this, and that thing will quiver in place. I want to be able to quiver that bait in place without moving it up, down, or forward toward the boat too much. And one of the perfect reels for casting light baits is one of these Lew's Custom Pro lights. This is a 6/8-to-1, great speed for shaking and just taking up enough line, but being able to still reel the slack up and drive that Big Daddy Baits Hedgehog hook into that bass's mouth. Now my spinning rod setup, the reel that I'm using is this, and they still have them in stock. This is a great reel, and they probably have them on sale because I'm pretty sure they're getting out of the reel business. So if you can go pick these up on Tackle Warehouse, man, you absolutely need to. But this is the Fitzgerald Stunner. So the Uni and the Uni HD, again, I'm going to throw on my spinning setup, and I'm going to start out most of the time with 10-pound to 12-pound Pro 100% fluorocarbon from K9, but my main line is that 14-pound JDM braid, of the silk braid that they have, That gives me the low visibility, the abrasion resistance, and the strength in that JDM braid so that I'm not overpowering the bait. I'm getting that quiver action that I want, and I'm able to get those bass to the boat. But now when it comes to my bait casting setup for those bigger unis, listen, I'm going to use 12-pound test right off the bat, and I may go up depending on how much cover and how deep into that cover that I'm going to get to that 15, even 17-pound K9 Pro 100. But the line on both of those setups gives me another way to control the action and the fall rate of the bait, the uni and the hedgehog. So the hedgehog's weight isn't the only way I can control how fast this bait falls. So I can move down in line size and it's going to give me a quicker fall rate. I can move up and I can keep that bait higher in the water column and maybe around some shallower cover for a little bit longer. Now, wind, current, and the size of uni and the weight can all change what size line or how it affects the bait. But generally speaking, 10-pound on the spinning combo and 12-pound on the bait casting combo, that's generally the sizes I'm going to start with. The second way I fish this setup is the jerkbait style retrieve. Now this is one where I'm not holding that bait in front of those bass's face for a long time trying to convince them to feed. It's one where I'm trying to jerk it and get a reaction bite. But the force of those jerks and the pause, just like a regular jerk bait, can be different from day to day. So make sure you're changing up that jerk and that pause to give those bass the presentation that they want to make them bite. But the force behind those twitches is really important. You don't want to pull that bait away from that cover too quickly. Now between those twitches, I want to make sure that I've got controlled slack. So I'm not losing complete contact with the bait, but I'm also giving it enough slack after that twitch to make sure that that bait is going to spring and it's going to kind of dart and be erratic. And that's where the hedgehog's forward line tie really is important, because I like to keep that rod tip down, and what it does is when you're twitching it, that bait moves forward and not up like a traditional 90-degree line tie jig head. So you want to maintain a little bit of contact, keeping that jig head out in front. But even if the jig head does roll down and the bass comes up, it's going to swing up and hook them right in the top of the mouth every single time. Now this is real important with these baits. Don't immediately swing on the fish when you feel a bite. Reel the slack up until you feel the weight of the fish and then swing away. Now once you get that bass hooked, you want to keep that rod tip down, keep constant pressure. This is where the backbone's going to help you get away from that cover so you don't get it marred up, and that tip is going to help keep them pinned. Now I'm not pumping the rod or giving the fish any unnecessary slack. I'm giving them just what I need based on the rod setup that I'm using at the time to get them out in open water and get them to the boat as quick as I can. And you know what I always say, either put that net on them or put a thumb on them, single hook bait. Just pay attention to where they're hooked at in the mouth, and most of the time it's straight through the snoot or it's in the back of the gullet. This is one of the simplest Urchin bait systems that you could come up with. When you combine the Yamamoto Uni and the Big Daddy Baits Hedgehog, you get a simple, straightforward system that's going to catch you a ton of bass on these Urchin baits. All right, geeks, so you want to check out some other rigging options for this? Hey, we've got a great video rigging them from top to bottom way before anybody else was talking about this. Go right here and check that out. Otherwise, questions, comments in the comment section below. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell, be part of the 100% Watch Squad, and you geeks rock.